And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Me and Ryan back together to recap Survivor 44, episode 7. Look, it was a week off for me last week. Apologize about that. Had a lot going on between the holidays and work stuff, but so happy to be back this week and talk Survivor. Seems like it is the perfect week for me to come back and for us to be back together because there is a lot to talk about. What is happening, Ryan? And yeah, I can't wait to hear your thoughts about all this.
Do you want to hear my thoughts? I mean, I not doing so well after that episode. Didn't really like it. I wore this shirt today actually to kind of reminisce about the good old days of Survivor. I got like the Panama logo here, the Co-Wrong logo here, the San Juan del Sur over here. So this at least made me feel like I'm watching classic Survivor again, because 44 is Jeff says drop the 4, keep the 1, but now it's like just drop the 4 and just drop all the other 4s after that. So
yeah, it is certainly like a lot of stuff that we've never seen before. But I'm very glad that this episode I had time to reflect on it, and I'm glad that I was able to read all the information and have like a day to process it and listen to some other podcasts and like form opinions, not just completely reactionary, like based on like when I just saw it and now like come on here and just rant about everything I saw. Like I'm happy I took some time to like process everything, and I feel like that is better for the podcast. So happy that we're doing it on Thursday and ready to get going. Just want to remind everyone that if you're watching live, first of all, thank you. And second of all, be sure to like this video if you're watching, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really helps us out. Follow us on all socials, links in the description below. And let's get going. So we had Matt go out tonight, or I should say last night, in what was a pretty devastating vote out. I think one thing that I've definitely gathered from reading everything is that pretty much consensus was that this was a devastating vote out for the Survivor community. I think everyone was pulling for Matt, and I think that it's unfortunate when somebody who's very well liked goes home, especially when it comes with multiple twists that a lot of people disagree with and a lot of people haven't seen before.
Yeah, let's just cut to the chase. I mean, this is an exit for Matt that obviously I feel bad. I feel bad for Matt. I feel like he got put in a really bad situation, not just in terms of the swap itself, but everything else that happened between, and we'll get into it, like him not being able to get his bag and just so many things that happened that just added twist upon twist. And then honestly, like, and it's tough because at first I was like, oh, do I want to root for Heidi here to kind of save Matt with this twist? But then I'm like, no, I kind of don't want it to work, because then that really just screws over Lauren, Jamie, and Brandon for no reason. And it's completely out of their control here. And they were able to still get past it. But Dylan, it's just a lot of things that we don't need. I mean, we're beating a dead horse. Basically, it's Survivor. Like, people are calling it like Mario Party now. There's just a million twists, a million turns. We're 2 episodes into a merge, quote unquote, and we haven't had a normal vote yet. Hopefully next week's a normal vote. People are losing votes. Dylan, I don't know if you know this, but fun fact, even though we've had medevacs, we've had 6 tribals this season. Do you want to guess how many tribal councils everybody in tribal council is able to vote?
0.
Just 1.
Oh, wow. Which one was it?
It was the Sarah one, where it was
okay. And that was what? That was 4 people on the tribe?
It was 4 people on the tribe.
Right,
Every other tribal council this season, somebody's not been able to vote. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah. So, all right, I'll give my thoughts. I was gonna say I'll give my thoughts real quick, but it may ramble on a little bit.
Go.
So obviously we've seen, and this is, I want to bring up a point that Rob Cesternino talked about on his podcast. The last few seasons we've been seeing a double boot at 10. And it gets split up between the 2 tribes, 5 and 5. The winners are safe, and they each go to tribal separately, and there's 2 separate tribal councils. However, Rob made an argument that 11 is usually a stale vote, so he wanted them to do something to switch it to switch things up and make it a little bit more interesting. Immediately when they announced this twist where basically it was going to be 5 and 5, Carson was going to get to choose, one person was going to be safe each, and then the entire tribe of the person who wins was going to end up being safe, but they were not going to be able to vote, I was like, I don't really like that. I'm okay with the like half the tribe is safe. I was not okay that they had no say in who goes home, because that seems like it's a little bit useless compared to like I don't know. I want to see a chaotic 11-person vote with like a million people talking a million different ways. Like I want to see that. Instead, it was like, well, we whittle it down to like 4 potential people who could go home. Obviously, this is going to eliminate, I would think, next week, which normally would have been a double boot, which I'm guessing will now be the first like normal vote of the post merge. So yeah, I didn't love that aspect. Now let's get to the control vote, which was the second aspect of this whole thing. Is Carson guesses right, so 6 people are safe. Franny wins the whole thing. She wins it for her whole tribe, I should say. And then you have Brandon winning it, which makes him safe, which means 4 people could potentially go home. Jam, Matt, Lauren, and Jamie. Okay. So immediately, they go to the feast and we get another advantage that comes up. That advantage was the control vote advantage, which we've never seen before. And it basically allowed Heidi to pick one person. Heidi was the person who found the advantage, obviously. Heidi was able to pick one person to switch, to basically control their vote. She could have, made whichever person she wanted vote for whoever she wanted, obviously, except for Brandon, who was safe. So I actually, and this could be controversial, I didn't mind this part of the twist. I actually was okay with it. I thought it was kind of just like a steal a vote, but for one tribal council. So I didn't mind it at all. What I did think the issue was the public knowledge about it, which I had no idea that that's how it was going to be. At least when I read it, I thought that it was going to be like, whoever gets their vote stolen goes to the booth and is like, and there's going to be like a note like, you have to vote for this person, and nobody's going to know. That would have made it for a way more exciting vote, or potentially could have made it for a way more exciting vote. Instead, we had this weird, awkward public thing where Heidi stands up as they're about to vote and is like, may I say something? I am going to steal Lauren's vote and have her vote for Jam. And it was just like awkward. And honestly, once she said that, it kind of played no role in anything that was going to happen. So I think this was like, it was almost like a good idea that I think if the right, and again, I think that a lot of the Survivor hate in the community is, it's coming from a place, I think, partially where everyone was so upset of who went home. If, let's say, and we're going to talk about this, I think this is a good segue into the next conversation. If, let's say Heidi had decided to steal Lauren's vote or steal Jamie's vote and put it either on Lauren or Jamie and force Matt and Jam to potentially play together and force a 3-3 tie because Lauren would use her extra vote to make the numbers even, that's kind of what everybody was rooting for, right? They kind of they teased it and made us think that it was going to happen. That would have been a very exciting tribal council, in my opinion. If Matt was saved, I think everyone would have been happy. Some people still would have been critical of the twist. Me personally, I would have had a lot less criticism, but I think the fact that, again, it's so results oriented. It's like the fact that the person that we wanted to stay ends up going home is like, it's tough, right? Because like you don't want somebody to be screwed by a twist that you like. But I think ultimately, what was your thoughts on the decision that Heidi made? Because I think there was a wide range of opinions on how she used it and was it the right move or not.
Yeah, so I agree with most of your points. Number one, the control of vote as an advantage in general, I don't mind because, like you said, we've seen vote steals before. We saw Stephen Fishback steal a vote in Cambodia, but to be fair, like he got to also vote himself. It's kind of like a watered down version of that in a sense where it's not like your vote plus the steal a vote. I don't mind that. I don't like it in this instance. Like if you want to do it at like final 11 or 10 with everyone voting, I think it's fine to do a control of votes. I have a problem when, like you said, we have 11 people, only 4 are eligible to go home and only 5 are voting. I don't like it in that situation. I also agree with you that I hate that it was public, because like you just said, it's basically didn't have any impact. Because yes, obviously we could talk right now about who she have played it on and told them to vote for, but like by her doing that, the former Ratus were like, oh, okay, you're taking Lauren's vote. All right, this is a shot against us in the war between Soka and Ratu. We're just going to vote for Matt anyway, and Matt's going to go home. It doesn't matter.
And it signaled to Jam Jam that he basically had to vote Matt.
And it also, by the way, this also makes Heidi look bad, because it signals to Jam Jam that, you know, Heidi doesn't have his best interests at heart because she told Lauren to vote for him. So Heidi, you could argue, I mean, granted, we can go over this. You can argue Heidi still has, you know, Danny and Franny and the Sokas in her. Actually, that's it on Soka, just Heidi, Danny, and Franny. She has them in her corner. But, you know, Jam Jam's going to be mad at Heidi now. Carolyn, by extension, is not going to be happy with Heidi. The Ratsus are like, you just declared war on us. By the way, speaking of war, I love that the meme you sent me that Mike Bloom tweeted out, where it was like the guy holding the guy with the balloon. And it's like, oh, we have a great Soka Ratu war with Tika in the middle, and then we're just going to throw a twist in there and ruin it. So basically making it public really hurt Heidi socially. And I also feel like it didn't even matter, but it was not great.
So I want to actually read a Reddit post that I saw on Survivor Reddit page last night. The title of the post is, I'm pretty sure Heidi's move this episode is a bottom 10 move in Survivor history. Now, obviously that's an exaggeration. That's a hyperbole. That's a hyperbole, yeah. But his or her, whoever posted it, the reasoning makes sense, right? They say, let's think this through. Matt got voted out anyway, so the move failed in its intended purpose. At least we think, right? Because it seemed like she was trying to keep Matt, even though she mentioned that she was like on the fence with maybe she didn't want to keep him. But based on the way that she used it, I would say that she probably wanted to try to keep Matt. But Matt got voted out anyway, so the move failed in its intended purpose. It says she lost an ally in Matt, obviously, but also possibly Franny and Danny. She burned a bridge with Jam Jam and therefore also with Carolyn, and she burned bridges with Ratu because obviously she took Lauren's vote. So yeah, it's tough. You know, when you put it like that, it's tough to see how this was a good move. And again, she had to use it, right? So it's like somebody she was gonna make somebody upset. I wonder if this kind of goes back to last week, where again I was reading some things that kind of suggested that this was a possibility. I'm wondering if it played a role that maybe she's close with Lauren, considering we saw both of them talking last night, and she didn't really want to take out Lauren, which I think is a possibility because she wants to work. She may want to work with her. Also, Stephen Fishback, I saw, brought up a great potential nugget here that everybody believes, at least it seems, that Jamie has an idol, right? Yeah. So maybe they were afraid to take a shot there. That being said, like Heidi was safe at the end of the day. So to me, it's like, all right, even if she did pull out a real idol and use it, like if she truly wanted to keep Matt, like you were able to take the shot given the fact that you were safe and you were not like having, you weren't actually in the vote. You were in the vote, but not like actually. So even if like there was a risk for potentially doing something to save Matt like this, if she truly wanted to save Matt, it was the wrong move for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see the reasoning there. I think you're right. It's hyperbole what the person said. It's not that horrible of a move. She really didn't have many options. I think we're having a different discussion today if Brandon doesn't win immunity, because like you said, if people think Jamie has an idol, and did we cut out?
Yeah, cut out for like a brief second. Keep going. You're good.
If they think Jamie has an idol, and maybe Lauren and Heidi are closer than we think, because again, we don't see these relationships, honestly. She was kind of put in a tough spot, but if she wanted to save Matt, that one of the Ratus had to really go home here. I think if Brandon wasn't safe, I could have seen her, put it maybe on Brandon, and someone would have made it against Brandon as a big threat possibly. But I think the optimal move for her would have been to, for her to tell Lauren to vote for Jamie or opposite. Take Jamie's vote, put it on Lauren, like you said, make it a 3-3, and then you at least signal to Jam Jam and Matt, vote together, and take the shot against Ratu. It'll be a tie. Maybe one of them will flip and panic. Maybe they won't want to go to Rocks, and you guys can like we saw with Daniel and Chanel 2 seasons ago, you can like bluff and be like, I'm not going to like Rocks or whatever. And then they'll say like, I'm terrified of going to Rocks. Like there was like, and I know Brandon got into a whole discussion with Matt about like, you can always save yourself, whatever. There's no luck involved, which I disagree. There's always some luck involved, but that was I think the optimal play. You make one of the Ratsus vote for each other. You hope Jam Jam and Matt get on the same page, and you hope that the Rock split or the split vote goes in your favor, because all she did by telling them to vote for Jam Jam, unfortunately, it did not save Matt. Like at that point, Matt was screwed, and he didn't have his bag, so he couldn't, because he would have played a shot in the dark if he had his bag too.
Yeah, and I think it was confirmed today in the exit interview. So I came prepared. I read the exit. I at least read a lot of the exit interview from Matt today, and he said, "quote." And then Heidi stands up like, "quote, I got an advantage. I control the vote." And I'm like, I'm saved. My beacon has been saved. This is beautiful for me. If she put any Ratu on any other Ratu, Jam Jam and I would have definitely would definitely have voted together. She would have saved us both, but she chose not to do that. So when she said Lauren on Jam Jam, right back down, I was like, I'm screwed again. That changes nothing. So they were ready to work together, clearly. If in that scenario. So again, I'm curious to what we hear from Heidi next week, whether this was some kind of intentional thing that she did or whether it was just like a complete misread. I don't really know. I'm curious though. A lot of times we've seen in the past, once one member of a showmance or a tight duo is out, it could kind of help the other person. So I'm curious to see. Everybody was talking about Franny and Matt. Everybody knew it was a thing. I'm curious to see how much this helps Franny going forward, because it seems like, like she is kind of in with Heidi, and at least we'll see if that is continued, but is kind of in with Heidi, with Danny. So maybe she could kind of, recover on her feet here. And I can tell you this, nobody is going to immediately see her as a big threat anymore, I wouldn't think. At least for the next few episodes. So I think that even though she did lose Matt, I still don't think she's in a bad place potentially right now.
Yeah, ironically, I don't think this is horrible for Franny. Obviously, it's never great to lose an ally. I mean, obviously, having an idol is nice, but I think having your votes and obviously having an ally is even better. So preferably, she would want a Matt to stay tonight. Now, like you just said, when there's a known duo in the game, like Robin Amber, Robin Amber stayed, but like a Natalie and Jeremy, when you have like a very known pair, obviously your threat level is going to drop significantly once that other person's out, because you don't have that guaranteed +1 anymore, and other names are going to start to float around. So ironically, I don't think this is the worst thing for her. I don't think Franny is going to go home next week at all. I think Franny could be around for a while now. I think she would have wanted Matt to stay. I just feel like it's tough, but maybe it was the right thing for her. When you brought up the exit interview, I thought you were going to mention what Jeff said, because people also were very upset that Matt didn't have his bag and he had no way of knowing that he was not going to get his bag. And I had some people say to me like, oh, well, you should always bring your bag. But like, you should at least expect to go back to camp in certain instances. Like, you shouldn't have to bring your bag everywhere. Like, also, like they didn't used to do this. Like Dom and Wendell used to hide their idols buried at camp. And like, imagine if they went somewhere else, not to camp, and they couldn't get their idols. Like, you should at least have that knowledge. But I was frustrated, as were other people, because someone, I think Dalton Ross or Mike Bloom, someone asked Jeff, like, oh, they were saying, did they bring Matt's bag to Tribal? And Franny and them were like, no, we didn't bring Matt's bag. Dylan, even if they brought Matt's bag, he wouldn't have gotten it, because they were told like you cannot interact with them at all. So even if Matt, and granted, he had a fake idol in there and he had the shot in the dark, so it wasn't like he was going to be safe regardless. But even if they had brought his bag, he wasn't allowed to get it.
Yeah, that is. I don't really know what to think of it, honestly, because at first in the in real time, I was like, well, what is he doing not bringing his bag? Like, you should probably bring your bag everywhere, especially if you have your bag of tricks in there. And I kind of, a part of me still feels like that, but also part of me is like, you mentioned prior seasons where this was never a possibility. And it's like, all right, well,
yeah.
Now, season 45 and on. And I saw another Reddit post about this. People are going to come, everybody's going to come with their bags to every challenge because you just never know what's going to happen. Yeah, it was definitely a crazy episode. Not necessarily in the best way, but yeah, I wish, again, I think if things played out slightly differently, everyone would have a much different viewpoint on some of these twists. Again, I don't necessarily hate both of them that much. The only thing I really truly hated was just the publicity of the control vote. That was really my main issue because that takes away a lot of the fun of it.
Yeah, I just feel like, and we'll go through this when we go through the episode, but like we had a very interesting situation for us where when the episode starts, we find out that unless there was anything else that you wanted to talk about the tribal council specifically.
I think we're pretty much good on the tribal council. Okay. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory given the fact that once everything happened, I mean, yeah.
Well, because and again, I think what you're saying is that people would have been upset regardless because this was a very twist-heavy episode. You just think with results-oriented thinking, you think that people would have been slightly less upset if Matt didn't go home here because Matt kind of really got screwed in a lot of ways. But I think we're also upset is because this had the makings of a really interesting episode because when it opens up, we have Danny saying like, look, I want to get out Lauren. And this is, again, the war between green and orange, where Danny's like, I want to get out Lauren because she has an extra vote. And I'm going to take my fellow Sokas and Franny, Matt, and Heidi, and I'm going to pull in Carolyn and Carson and get Tika on my side. And obviously we saw a quick scene with Carolyn, Carson, and Jam Jam where they're like, we're the swing votes here. So that's cool. Then it gets even better because then we see Matt realize, oh shit, my idol could be fake because Brandon found 2, and obviously Kane verified that. Brandon found 2, 1 real, 1 fake. I only found 1. What does that mean for me? Does that mean that my idol's fake? If it does, who helped me get it? Danny kind of helped me get it. So it could have been a whole episode of like, is it going to be Danny or Lauren, but are the Sokas going to turn on Danny? And that would have been an amazing episode. And then they just threw it completely out the window with this.
Yeah. And that's what I want to talk about next.
Yeah.
Because I think this is still something to look out for, right? Is clearly now everybody knows Danny as an idol. And I mentioned this to you a while ago. I said Danny may have been doing too much too early here when he was, kind of directing Matt to find the fake idol. And again, Carolyn did the same thing, but I think Carolyn also, she got bailed out by Sarah going before the merge even hit. At first I said to you, I think Danny wants to keep Matt very close because that would help him. Now, in hindsight, given what happened, I would say that Danny was probably better off just getting the fake idol out of the game because, like, once Matt had enough time to, hit the merge and talk to other people who had the same exact bird cage at their camp, it was kind of easy to put the dots together that, maybe my idol's fake. And now Danny has a huge target on his back because he has an ally, because he has an idol, not an ally. So for me, it's like, if you're Danny, right, you probably, played everything a little bit too hard too early. Now you have the odds incredibly stacked against you, because you have a huge target on your back and you're going into final 10 now where pretty much everybody, a lot of people, most people want him gone already, right? So even if he does play an idol correctly, it's going to be insanely hard for him to lower his threat level back down. Pretty much everybody knows he has the idol, right? Now, the only thing is, and we still haven't, we haven't figured this out, the Orange Tribe, Matt went home with the idol, right? When he got medevaced. Jamie's idol's fake. Brandon played the idol from the birdcage in the first episode, so he only has the fake one. Basically, we still have not heard a single thing about Carolyn, right? Has anybody figured that out yet? So that's one of the things that's most interesting to me. I think it was a blessing that Carolyn, that Sarah went home with the fake idol, because now there's no Sarah to talk to everybody about having an idol. And then therefore, get figured out that Carolyn or somebody else may have it. I'm wondering if, people just think that maybe Sarah had the real one and it left the game. If somebody, thought that somebody else had the real one and it left the game, because they had a lot of people that left, that left early. Obviously, they were the smallest tribe whittled down. So I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks about what happened with that purple birdcage. Because you could see they were Jam Jam was sitting in right there. He was in that conversation, and they were like, "Trust me, it was broken into. Like somebody definitely figured it out." And he was like, "We didn't really hear anything from him." So I'm kind of curious to know. Did we get a scene where Carolyn told Jam Jam about it, or did we not get that yet?
As far as we know, no one knows about Carolyn's idol.
Right. So yeah. Again, I'm curious to just see what's going on with that. Like maybe Jam Jam knows and is keeping it a secret. Maybe he doesn't know. I think hopefully we'll learn that info soon, because it is very interesting.
Let me ask you a question that I just literally thought of this 2 seconds ago, because you were talking about, Danny doing too much. Now Danny could be in trouble at the final 10 because people know he is an idol and he's a big physical threat. Do you think, ironically, also maybe Danny was helped out by Matt going home as well? Like we said, it's not great for Frannie that Matt left, but maybe it could be a blessing in disguise and she could go under the radar for a couple weeks at least. Do you think it could happen with Danny too? Because at first I was like, well, Danny's going to be a big threat because people know he has the idol. Matt told Brandon, Kane, and Jam Jam, or whoever else was sitting there. But think about it this way. In the preview, and granted the previews you take with a grain of salt because they could just be misdirecting you. You see all you see is like Frannie and Danny say, like, we have to get Ratu out. Like, it's the war is on. We have to get them out. Anybody that was going to flip against Danny, like if Frannie and other people were going to flip against Danny, do you think that this could have saved him? Because like now Frannie and Heidi are like, well, we can't take out Danny now because the Ratus have the numbers and they're very scary. And now it's going to be another battle of like, all right, if we have 3 green and there's currently 4 orange, 3 green, and 3 purple left. So it's going to be a war for who gets Carolyn, Carson, and Jam Jam. And I feel like if Matt would have stayed, you could have easily convinced me that next week maybe Matt and Frannie flip on Danny and take a shot at him next week, maybe. But now that Matt's gone and they're losing numbers, they lost Josh and Matt back to back. I think Danny may have been safe for at least another week or 2, because I wonder if they're like, we can't risk Danny going home. We have to get out Brandon or Lauren or Jamie, like now.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, right? And it's one of the reasons why everybody says, like, all you got to do in Survivor is, sometimes all you got to do is survive one more vote, and then the entire game could be completely changed for you. And that could be what happened with Danny. I still suspect that they're going to be targeting him, because I think like if Soka is, and again they have 3 to Ratu's 4, if they're able to bring in a lot of the three of the purple tribe, Carson, Jam Jam, and Carolyn, then I think that they'll feel comfortable enough to try to take a shot at Danny. But the timing also has to be perfect, right? Because you don't want to fail at that, and then all of a sudden your ally your ally and Danny, your former ally at that point, could easily just flip to the other side, and then he's still in the game if you mess up the timing. So I think, look, I still think that it's going to be hard for Danny to overcome everyone knowing him have the idol. But like you said, if all of a sudden he lasts 2 more weeks because they're trying to keep their numbers up, and then all of a sudden he goes on an immunity run and wins 2 or 3 immunities, then all of a sudden you're at final 6 and you still have the idol. And it's like, sometimes all you need is 1 week of like catching a break. So again, I have my concerns for him, but like you said, I could easily see your situation playing out as well.
Soka and Tika, I'm doing the math in my head. Soka and Tika, they have to take a shot next week at Ratu. Granted, maybe there's another twist, because here's the problem. There's 10 people left, but Lauren did not end up using her extra vote. She actually ended up only voting once with the vote from Heidi. So in the end, Heidi and Matt, with Lauren doing it, voted for Jam Jam, and then the 3 right? Am I correct? Yeah, it was Matt and Lauren voted for Jam Jam. Jam Jam, Brandon, and Jamie voted for Matt. So Lauren has her extra votes. There are 10 people left, which means there's 11 votes.
Your mic, Ryan, your mic just went out for a sec. Nope, not good now. All good. We're having some mic issues, so I'll just take over real quick while Ryan.
Am I good now?
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Continue.
Before I get kicked out again, what I was saying was green and purple have to vote together because they have 6 if you add 3 and 3. If they take a shot at Ratu, they lose that number, and hopefully they get out Lauren, then they lose Lauren's extra votes. If they don't get out a Ratu next week and they go to final 9 and Lauren still has her extra votes, then they control the majority for the next couple. If Ratu just decides to stick together, and we saw last night, Brandon was like, when Matt was like, would you consider voting out Lauren? And Brandon's like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't think, maybe Kane, I could see Kane maybe flipping, but I don't see Jamie, Brandon, and Lauren flipping against each other. I think they're going to stay locked in. So if the green and purple don't take the shot next week, they're going to really be down in the numbers then.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Okay. And this is actually one thing I didn't mention before, which is what I wanted to mention, is I think one of the major issues with not taking the shot, if you're Heidi, on having the Ratus vote for each other, is that you would have at least flushed Lauren's vote, right?
Yes.
So you would at least flush Lauren's extra vote. You wouldn't have had to worry about that at final 10. And I mean, I guess if you do the math and she really wanted to save Matt, then if you do the revote after all that, then I believe that whoever ended up getting the vote, Jamie or Lauren, would have went home in a 2-1 revote. Is that correct? Because the extra vote would not have counted in the revote. And then let's say that the votes were split between Lauren and Matt. So the people voting would be Heidi, Brandon, and let me think. It would be Heidi, Brandon, and if the votes were split between Matt and Lauren, and Heidi had taken Jamie's vote, and put it on Lauren, then the votes on the revote would have been Brandon, Jam, and Heidi, and then if Jam and Heidi stuck together, it would have been a 2-1 for Lauren. But we don't know. Is Heidi confirmed voting in it? Because Jay says Heidi isn't voting in the revote. So would that control a vote not go to a revote?
See, that's the problem. We don't know the rules. I don't think it. I don't think it works in the revote. My understanding was you control the vote for the initial vote. I don't think it also would be kind of stupid if you could also control the revote as well. But I could be wrong. I think either way.
Yeah, your mic went out again, Ryan. Mic issues on the podcast once again. So it's all good. But yeah, I still can't hear you, Ryan. But yeah, if what Jay is saying is true and it doesn't apply to a revote, then all right, you're back, Ryan. If it doesn't apply to a revote, then everything then it's changed, and then see, this is why the twist is so crazy, these new twists without like clear rules, because why would I feel like it should apply to a revote, but if it doesn't, then Matt would have went home anyway in that situation, but at least you flushed the extra vote.
Yeah.
So
I mean, okay, and if I cut out, just let me know again. I promise next time, guys, I'll either get the new mic or I'll just go mic-less and we'll deal with it. But basically, we don't know if it applies to a revote or not. But like you said in Matt's exit interview, I think either way, it wouldn't have mattered. I think no matter what, no one is flipping their vote there. The only way Matt and Jam both survive is if she makes Ratu vote for each other and then something happens with the rocks, or if somebody quickly flips on a revote. Because at that point, even if she controls the revote, I think it's still a tie at that point. I think, like you said, the minute Matt is like, "Oh, I'm so excited," and she goes, "I'm gonna put it on Jam," he's like, "Oh, I'm screwed." Like, I think at that point it was already over for him. So I think even if it does apply to the revote, I don't know if it even matters.
Yeah, it's so, all this being said, it's an absolute necessity to get back on track. It's absolutely a necessity that if you're Soka, you get Tika to vote with you next week and you take out Ratu, because if you don't, so then if that were to happen, the numbers would be 6-4, Soka and Tika against Ratu. If you don't do that next week, and Ratu stays as a strong 4, and you can't get Tika to vote with you, then you're in real trouble, especially if Ratu could get up on the numbers, be in with some of the Tika, plus have the extra vote. I mean, Soka should just be counting their days at that point. Like it's tough. And again, I know that a lot of things don't go completely on tribal lines post merge anymore. It's not as much like that anymore. But at the same time, yeah, it would be rough for them. So that's, I would say, the number one goal of Soka.
Let me ask you another quick conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So we're both sure that Heidi wanted to save Matt there in the end, is what we're sure about.
I would assume. Now, they did throw in the portion where they said that she would be kind of okay with him leaving.
Yeah.
So you're gonna say, what if she just threw the vote on Jam Jam to keep Soka happy, but like she knew that it was not gonna have an impact?
Yeah. So I think, just so you can give your thoughts, I think what she wanted to do, because they always sometimes give you that little decoy thought process confessional. Yeah. I think she wanted Matt to stay and Soka to stay strong. And I think she probably made the wrong move by putting it on Jam Jam. There's a non-zero chance that we get to the episode next week. She's very smart. She's an engineer. She thinks about things very clearly. There's a chance that Heidi says in confessional, if Matt stayed, I would have been happy, but am I okay that he went home anyway by no fault of my own? Not the worst thing, because then it weakens Franny. Maybe it brings Franny closer into Heidi, and Heidi didn't have to be the one to take the shot and say, Lauren, go vote for Matt, because then that's a direct shot. So do you think there's a chance that's what she wanted, or do you think that it just missed in general?
My gut is saying it just missed, but maybe there is a chance of this, right? And then you would have, like, if truly the other members of it seemed like Danny would have wanted the Ratu voting Ratu type thing.
Yeah, because since the episode started, he wanted Lauren to go.
And Heidi and Danny are each other's number ones, at least we're led to believe. So again, I guess you have to look out for your self-interest over your allies, right? So yeah, I'll give it a slight possibility. I don't ultimately think that's what happened, but if it does, I'll be interesting to see like how that leaves her off. Are Franny or Danny or one of them, will Danny be mad at her for doing that? If maybe she wanted her to steal a Ratu vote, maybe he'll be annoyed by that. I assume Franny thought that Jam Jam was the right move, so maybe she wanted that. I don't really know. But if it was a purposeful misdirect, then I will be happy to talk about that next week. And how that impacts the game and why she did that and how it ended up affecting next week's episode. But the fact that we're not given this information, one, is somewhat problematic. But yeah, I hope we find out next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough because obviously that was a very, I mean, I don't love when people cry in general in Survivor, but it was a very interesting scene, I'll say, where you have the two pairs, very emotional because Franny's going to lose Matt, or Carolyn's going to use Jam Jam, and then you see like Jam Jam and Carolyn are excited that they both survived again, and then Franny and Matt kind of lose each other. But I mean, look, was there anything Matt could have done to save himself? I mean, the problem was that he kind of painted himself into I think Matt got kind of screwed, but I think he also didn't set himself up the best. Like, obviously being an obvious pair with Franny wasn't great. Like, right. Since they started linking up, everybody knew that they were together. So that was a very obvious threat. They could have been more low key. He could have brought his bag anyway, but I still think that's kind of fluky. And then, what's crazy is that, like, do you think he also hurt himself and shot himself in the foot by, like, he kind of did like the whole, like, woe is me when he was like to Jam Jam, I don't have my bag. And I feel like he kind of set himself up for failure, because if he tried to bluff and say, like, I have something, like maybe he said like, oh, I don't have my shot in the dark, but I still have my idol in my pocket. Like, I think by him saying I have nothing, it almost was like, oh, like he's making this super easy for us then. Like we have no problem.
Right. So I think, but at the same time is they were kind of accounting for that, right? Is because the plan was to split the vote, right? Mm-hmm. And Lauren mentioned that the plan was to split the vote. So I think that they were like potentially predicting that maybe he was bluffing about not having anything on him. So I don't know. I think you make a good point, but I also think that they were kind of accounting for him potentially having something anyway.
But you know what? They're also lucky because I did the math. they're lucky that, I mean, granted, you could argue that they were going to split the votes if Heidi didn't have that. And then Heidi doing it signaled them all to kind of get on the same page. But you can't split votes in 5. The math doesn't work out. And you can split votes in 6 because you could do a 2-2-2. You can't split votes in a 5-person group. So I thought for a second that until Heidi said to vote for Jam Jam, I actually thought one of Lauren or Jamie were going to go home, because when Matt and Jam Jam are like, what if they decide to split and we vote together? And I'm like, they can't split here. And then Lauren goes, we're going to split. I'm like, oh, this is setting up for them to get blow in their face. And it didn't work out though. But
what I will say is that, I thought we were maybe going to see some of this last night, and it didn't end up happening. I'm waiting for the Jamie.
Oh, me too.
I'm waiting for the Jamie blow up episode. That's for sure coming. I don't know. Maybe it happens next week when she thinks that they're down in the numbers and like needs to save herself by using an idol, and then it ends up being fake. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be a big thing. And again, it would be so disappointing if that does not have a good ending to it, because they really hyped up. They didn't even need to, because since Matt left the game, they didn't even really need to like tell us about that fake idol if it wasn't going to have an impact. You know, there's been several fake idols in the game that production has not shown to us that, you know, we've heard from players after. The fact that they showed us this and she keeps repeating, I have an idol, I have this, like, it feels like a very prime blow up spot. And I think that with potentially Tika and Soka, if they're able to team up and Ratsu would be down in the numbers, she could be in trouble, I would think. Especially, I can't assume Soka would be too happy with her, considering, you know, there was a point where it looked like Jamie was going to be in with Soka. It looked like she wanted to work with them. She had several confessionals in the season saying, I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. And then last night it was clear that she's with Ratsu, right? So maybe they're annoyed by that. Maybe they want to target her. Plus, you could always say Brandon's going to be a big threat to win immunity again next week. So if they are going for Ratsu's, you know, clearly Lauren, they see Lauren as a threat, clearly. But I also think that Jamie pretty much confirmed what side she's on last night. And I think that could possibly rub Soka the wrong way. So don't be surprised if that blow up could be coming.
I mean, look, I don't want to read the edit too much because obviously, like we keep saying, after Gabler, Marianne, and Erica, I feel like we can't read the edit anymore. But there's no, I mean, first of all, I don't think she's going to win, but there's no way, Dylan, each and every week they give us the whole, I have an idol, but it's fake. I'm the most important person here. They should all be talking to me. I have a magic wand. There's no way they're setting this up where it's like she gets extremely confident and then it blows up in her face, where it's like, oh, they want to vote for Lauren because Lauren, they know you have an extra vote. Put it on me because I have an idol. I'll whip it out, and I'll like this. It has to blow up at some point. There's no way it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if it does. Now one more thing I think I want to talk about before we hit questions, because I think we pretty much addressed like almost everything that happened in this episode.
Yep.
I would like to say, I think that, I mean, what an unbelievable, especially the fact that Jam Jam got past this vote. First of all, he's doing a great job at somehow just avoiding getting voted out every time. Second of all, Carolyn, Jam Jam, and Carson are in an unbelievable spot right now. Like, they really are in an unbelievable spot. I don't think like they're other now, like, clearly people are on to Carolyn and Jam Jam because it was clearly obvious last night. So maybe people will be on to them, but I haven't heard basically anybody bring up Carson's name in terms of like anything so far, as in like, oh, he's a big threat because he's working with this person. Meanwhile, it seems like he's pretty much in tight with Carolyn and Jam Jam, and pretty much everybody thinks Carson is with them, right? So I don't know. I think this 3, especially the fact that they're in the middle next week, I mean, they cannot be in a more perfect spot. They're needed by both sides, and I think that all 3 of them are set up for the long run now. At this point.
Reddit, and we make jokes still about the intentional Matt Singh, but there's science behind this. If you are in a 3-person tribe season and you're the Dodo tribe and you keep losing, whether you're the Brains in Kagian or you're the Matt Singh or you're Tika, if you're the Disaster tribe, you lose 2 or 3 people before the merge, you're going to go pretty far in the merge. You're not going to get targeted for a while because you lose numbers. You are not a threat and people want to use you to take out some of their own. So they're in a great spot. It's also, Dylan, the irony is not lost upon me that they also got the most screen time because they keep losing. And it's also not ironic that if you did like a Twitter poll or Reddit poll, you say who are the most popular players, it's going to be Carolyn, Jam Jam, and Carson. Everyone is rooting for one of Carolyn, Carson, and Jam Jam to win. I might say right now that I think one of them is going to win. Maybe Franny wins. Maybe Franny's like the Natalie Anderson revenge arc, and maybe she wins for Matt. But I think it's going to be one of those four personally, because they're the stars of the show. Even Dylan, even tonight, when Carolyn's not even involved in the vote, we're getting confessionals from Carolyn, and Carolyn's like is getting like crying shots on the jury bench, and then she's smiling when Jam Jam's safe. Like, the stars of the show are Tika, and like you said, they're in a really great spot.
Yeah, I think I would say I don't see this as being an issue for Carson. But with Carolyn and Jam Jam, and again, there's still so much game left.
Yeah.
I'm curious at this point, at least, and again, we literally just merged. We're in final 11, or final 10 next week. It doesn't seem like a lot of people are taking either one of them seriously, which again could be a good thing. But I hope that they are able to make some big moves along the way so that they could, finally be taken seriously at the end. So if they get there, so I'm excited to see how that 3 progresses along the game. And yeah, I think Franny could be in a good spot as well. So I'm curious to see how this plays out.
I do think of those 3, I think Carson is the best positioned. I think obviously Jam Jam's gotten a couple votes now twice in a row. So Jam Jam, even though people don't see him as a threat and he's been like the backup name, he's seen as expendable. And just like with Kane, like when your name is thrown out there as like a backup or a decoy and you're seen as expendable, it's not a great thing. So I don't think Jam Jam is in the best spot, but he's still in a good spot. It's just that his name is being brought up as like a decoy vote. Carolyn, I think, is in a good spot because people underestimate her. But because Carson went over to Ratu and he has also Kane as an alliance member, I think Carson has more options. So I think Carson's the best positioned. Having said that, I think if they want to take a shot at Tika, Carson, I think, is the biggest threat of those 3. So Carson is like the double-edged sword of like, he's the best positioned right now in Tika and overall. I think Carson actually may be one of the best positioned people in the game right now. But I think if people are like, let's take out one of the Tikas, I could see them saying, we're not scared of Carolyn and Jam Jam. Let's go for Carson. Carson's the freaking the aerospace engineer. Like, so.
Yeah. It'll be certainly interesting to see. Now, one more thing before we get to questions that I want to address is that there was the rumor in the last week that season 45 could be moving to 90-minute episodes.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. First of all, having said that, like you have said and you've expressed to me, I hope that if we get the 90-minute episodes every week, that that extra time is not used to include more twists and instead used to include more relationships and actual gameplay.
I mean, I think either we love Survivor. No matter what, I'm going to love Survivor. Right. Survivor would have to do something extremely bad for me to stop watching, but I'm going to watch no matter what. Having said that, I will say I'm very excited for 90 minutes and I will watch it always. And I want there to be 90 minutes. But like I said to you, they better fill it with relationship building, camp life. We need to know who was voting with who and make it very clear to us. Don't waste it on saying, oh, now we're going to throw in a new twist every week, or now we're going to do all these gimmicks, because then it's just going to make this even worse. Dylan, let me ask you one last quick question before we get to official questions. Speaking of 90-minute episodes, do you think, because I think Jeff doesn't care. I think Jeff, obviously this is his baby, but I feel like at this point, Jeff, with all this experimentation with twists, people are saying, and I kind of agree, I think Jeff has kind of like lost the plot. And I think people are afraid that like Jeff doesn't really get what the fans want anymore. Because apparently, I didn't listen to the podcast yet because I was too busy. But apparently, Jeff said on his podcast, like, this was a great episode. This was really great. And everyone online is like, this is not. I mean, you have not only fans, you have people, and I can go through the list. You have people like Adam Klein, Kellen, Gabby. You have Steven. I mean, you have people who are like have played the game that are like, Jeff, this is terrible. Do you think, I mean, my question to you is, because they haven't got out to film 45 yet, do you think Jeff, now with everybody, including players, tweeting this, do you think Jeff now has realized this? Do you think they're going to say, okay, we went a little too far, we have to step back now?
So I think that the perception is that he doesn't care about what fans and former players think. My take on that is that he's never going to publicly admit at least before the season before next season starts filming. He's not going to hop on his podcast when there's 7 episodes left and plenty of time to promote the rest of the season. He's not going to get on his podcast and be like, yeah, you know what, we screwed this up. A lot of things in this season we screwed up, and we think that we'll do it better next time. Because then, why would he do that? So I think, it's his job as the producer and as the host to hype up the show, on his podcast. So I think that's what he's going to do.
He said 44 was better than 43. I feel like he kind of painted himself into a hole here.
Do I think that that they look in the mirror behind the scenes and say, you know what, we have to switch things for next season? Yeah, of course. They did it with the hourglass twist, thank God.
Danny freaking reamed Jeff out on the match. Right. Danny's like, what the fuck?
So yeah, I think they'll take the feedback. Hopefully, again, do I think that we'll ever get back to what everybody wants in terms of like less and less advantages? Not necessarily. I think that it could be dialed back a little bit, and I think that they will hear I think he will hear the feedback eventually. I'm most excited because pretty much all the signs are pointing to 46 being all returnees. So that could be interesting. Fingers crossed for that, because we are well overdue for returnees.
But you know what? I think, and this will be the last thing that we can get to questions. I feel like Jeff, like you said, Jeff was not going to admit it during the season. I mean, Jeff is going to hype up the season. He's been hyping this up more than 43. But I will give Jeff credit. Jeff does listen to feedback. He got rid of the hourglass. Jeff did get rid of Redemption Island. He talks to Mike White. Jeff, like you said, in the mirror, Jeff will always say, in the mirror, in hindsight, he'll say, a couple seasons ago, we had an idea and it was pretty bad, so we didn't do it. So he'll always say retroactively something wasn't great. He won't say it in the moment. I mean, I saw in his exit press today, he was like, oh yeah, before I talked to Mike White, 41 was going to be all about fire tokens. You can go to a shop and you can buy advantages and rice and palm fronds. There's an economy, and Rick Devens is the shopkeeper, and everyone's like, Jeff, you've gone off the deep end here. So yeah, I have a feeling behind the scenes production's like, all right, season 45 is going to go out and film within a month or two. Maybe we should scratch this off. Maybe we should kind of dial back on some stuff, because again, I still love Survivor, but I feel like I'm seeing more discourse than I've ever seen.
Yeah. Eventually, it's going to hit a breaking point where I think things will switch back. So, but let's get to some questions that we have. Yep. Okay, we spoke about the misdirect already.
Here, I have a question actually from Jay, because I was going to mention this earlier. So we made the comment that we think this is good for Frannie that Matt left, because she's now not seen as part of a duo. Jay brings up the point that, but could you argue, but her threat level would skyrocket around the end game because Matt is a locked-in vote for her in a jury of 8. So that's already 1 vote down, and she won a challenge already and even beat Brandon out. So I agree with Jay, and let me retract something. I think Frannie, like Natalie Anderson, I think Frannie's going to be good for the next couple votes, Dylan. I don't think she's going to be a target because she just lost her number 1 ally. You could tell me if Frannie makes it to final 5 or 4, I could see this happening. I could see someone saying, shoot, Frannie's likable. She wins challenges. She has a locked-in vote with Matt. Danny and Heidi like her. I could see her going under the radar. If she manages it well, she'll be fine. But I could see them saying around like the end game, maybe we got to take Frannie out.
Yeah, I don't think this comes up until if she gets to the probably final 6 or 5. So I don't think, I think it's a good point. I don't think it's anything she has to worry about in the near future. Mm-hmm. This is also another good point I want to bring up. Why are Danny and Brandon seemingly against each other now, even though they wanted to align? And how will Danny coming after Lauren and vice versa affect Danny's relationship with Brandon? So this is the type of thing that I think, and like I said, there was a scene last week which I had completely forgot about until I was reading people say it and listening to people mention it. Same thing with Lauren and Heidi, which they seemed locked in last week. So maybe that was a reason why Heidi didn't go after Lauren. There have been some other side conversations like this Danny and Brandon one that we haven't really seen much else of. And I'm curious to see if that's a thing, or maybe that was just something that was just built up because of that moment. Who really knows? I think this is, and hopefully it gets filled in last week. I think these are like small gaps in the editing that I wish were filled in, because our impression is that everybody's impression is that it's green versus orange about to be at war. Meanwhile, there are some interrelationships that have been kind of forming. So maybe we're completely off base. Who knows?
Well, I agree completely. Like, I mean, I feel like even last week, I was surprised that Danny and Brandon were like, oh, let's go for Josh, because they were like telling Carolyn at the Journey, oh, we want to work with Josh as part of like the Meat Brigade, and we want to work with him. But they were so quick to vote out Josh. But maybe it was like, oh, they were just telling Carolyn what she wants to hear. Now we're at a point where, oh, Danny and Brandon might want to go for each other, but maybe they don't. I feel like we need more, and this is why the 90-minute episodes would help, because we're going to fill in some of these gaps in the storytelling, and we'll really figure out how are these bonds. Like for example, like, I mean, look, you can obviously make a leap in logic, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but you can make a leap in logic and say, oh, I'm not surprised Heidi said, oh, I have a connection with Jam Jam because, you know, they're both from Puerto Rico. But like, obviously, I wouldn't think that, because I have not seen a single confessional up to tonight where I was like, oh, Heidi says that she wants to work with Jam Jam in the future. The editors just want us to immediately just accept, oh, Heidi doesn't want Jam Jam to go home. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, we need more here to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, I think for sure. We definitely need more, and hopefully we end up getting that.
One quick question that I didn't see in the chat, but everybody was posting it online today, so I thought I would just bring it up now. The right move, Dylan, by the way, was for Frannie to drop, right? Like the minute that she won immunity and then she was facing off against Brandon and them, she should have just dropped, because then she would have been safe, Matt would have been safe, and she could have taken a shot at the end if she wanted to.
The right move would have been that, but like if you're in the moment, you know,
well, that's what Owen said.
That's probably not something that's like crossing most people's minds in the moment. It's like,
exactly.
It also is like, you know, it is kind of still a little bit early in the game for that. You know, it's like at the end of the day, like, yeah, you know, Danny's not going anywhere. Like you could always get him next week. Like this is your moment, you know, like this is potentially part of your resume when people look at the end and say, well, Frannie won 3 challenges, you know, that's part of her resume. Like you know, so you know, people maybe, you know, she beats Brandon and all of a sudden she gains a lot of respect from her allies, and maybe people like trust, maybe just people like are drawn to her more after that. So again, so much goes into it. In a perfect world, that's the right move. But I think that you're taking away a lot of other aspects of it that are like human aspects that I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the optimal move. I mean, former players like Owen and Steven were like, yeah, and when you're in the moment, like you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about you have to win the challenge there. But yeah, and granted, this is a challenge where if she dropped, it's not going to look like she threw it, because it's very easy just to like drop the ball. But yeah, she should have dropped there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll do this as the last question. Is it too soon for people from the new era to come back for eternity season? I think it's soon. Thoughts? I don't think so. I actually think that if I had to make a prediction, I think the season 46 will be a old era versus new era type season, where I think we'll get 10 people from the new seasons, which again, I know it will only be 5 of them at that point, assuming 45 is all new, which I think it will be. And then we'll get, I think, 10 from pre-season 40. So that's my prediction. I don't think it's too soon. But we'll see what Survivor does.
I don't think it's too soon. I mean, right now, to do some quick math, we've had 4 seasons in a row of new people, 18 people each. That's 72 people that you can pick from. I mean, granted, you're not going to, there's some people you're definitely not bringing back, but like you have 72 options. You do 45, which we think is all new people as well. That's now 90 people you can pick from. So you can do an all returning season with just the new era, or what we would prefer as, you know, fans of the series, is you do an old school versus new school, or you do like a old era, new era thing like Dylan just said. And maybe production picks them. Or if you really wanted to get the fans excited, you do second chance again, or you do some type of fan voting and you have them say like, fine, you want to vote, pick some people from the new, pick some people from the old. I feel like that's the best way to do it, but I guess we'll see what they choose to do.
Yep. We'll see. But yeah, that's all we got for tonight. Happy we were able to be back on Thursday. Excited to be back next week to see what happens, and excited to see what Heidi's explanation is for sure. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I can't wait for, fingers crossed, a normal vote next week. But but yeah, looking forward to next week. And again, thanks everybody for watching. If you haven't liked the video yet, be sure to do that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And thank you guys for watching.
Let's hope next week is more normal. Grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.